I'm curious to know, how do those relationships work when the cameras aren't rolling? Because I think this is always a huge challenge for reality stars that have TV relationships, which are real.
Yeah.
But there is an element of pressure to have to display it in public. But how does it work? And I always say this, whenever I've had couples in that have been on reality shows, and I have had many couples that have been on various reality shows, and I'm really, really strict and clear with them on having to calm out the us time, the private time.
Yeah.
And at what cost? Because by keeping some things private can sometimes be catastrophic for their public profile. There is a trade-off on that, and it really is a difficult one, but a very important decision to see how big that and actually most of the relationships, the couples have not lasted because actually putting the work in without any cameras or headlines or paps or anything around hasn't actually served them in the end. They're still on their trajectory of being in the reality world, and there's no shade on that. They're not in the right space.
It's a really hard decision. Actually, I found it really hard juggling the relationship and I suppose my sort of TV career. That's where actually my relationships were bad, because I would not behave a certain way, but there was this sort of persona that I had on Made in Chelsea. And then when I get into a relationship, I don't think the guys that I were with could understand or liked this person that I sort of was on TV. And then behind closed doors at home, I was completely different, and I was very calm, very chilled. But then because I enjoyed doing TV, I would say shit that you probably shouldn't say or do different things that would then wind them up. Not deliberately, it was just very complicated. And actually, I think I don't know. I don't think with either one of them, if we had left TV and tried to live a quiet life, it would have worked. We were actually wrong for each other. But I mean, I do know a lot of people who were on TV who do end up leaving the entire industry because they prioritize their relationship for it. But it's hard to juggle. Like, I think that's another thing. Well, I've struggled. Well, this is more not just necessarily about TV, but is juggling relationships and careers. But especially when you are in this industry, it's so demanding and there's so many different things and everything's so last minute and you've got to do this and do that, and it's not easy.
No, it's not. But I think it comes down to trying to take that step back, trying to create some boundaries, which is always important in relationships. But equally, I see and I know what it's like in this industry. It is constantly fast paced, constantly changing, constantly trying to stay up there. And trying to stay relevant.
Fight, or the whole time, everyone trying to
Right, everyone is jumping on each other's coattails, to stay up there. And I think it is very difficult to sustain a relationship whilst being in the reality world.
I mean, I don't know how those. I mean, it's different. Made in Chelsea different, but the Love Island couples who come off those shows having to. The pressure of that. I think with Made in Chelsea, I always felt it wasn't really the pressure. It was just I never had smooth sailing in a relationship. And I don't know if that was because of it being on TV or because of who I was with or who I was at the time.
Well, I think you've also identified a bit there. You just said that to me, because what I was hearing is that you put on a different, there was an elevated persona when you were on the telly, when the cameras were rolling versus at home. So that's incongruent, and that's going to be difficult to manage unless you are with somebody that's able to
have my 25 personalities.
Yeah, but equally, I would then also assume that they were also on the telly. So equally, they had the same stakes at play as well. So it's very, very difficult. And I think this is where relationships, they are all about compromise. Relationships are hard work. They're also wonderful and fantastic, but we have to keep prioritizing each other all the time. I've been married 10 years next month, and it's very sweet. Some people say, oh, you guys, couple goals, whatever. I'm like, are you joking me? Are you joking? Like, my husband and I, we've been through the mill and back over 10 years.
How do you keep
nearly
it good?
Divorced twice.
What's your advice? What's your to maintain something healthy and strong that does
You have to prioritise each other.
Do you do date night and stuff?
Yes. In fact, funnily enough, we're trying to organise one for tomorrow because we've had the kids. Well, only because we've had the kids. We're in the middle of a house renovation. relationship killer. Also bank balance killer. But we've had the kids off for school for the last 6 weeks. We don't have a nanny or anything like that. Childcare, we juggle the childcare together, which we do pretty well. But we are threadbare, Liv. I'm not going to lie. We're threadbare. We can't be asked to have sex, and we would quite like to have sex.
I should have bought my Jomo.
Should have bought your Jomo.
I'm going to send you Jomo
Bring
and
the
Mojo.
Jomo. Bring the Jomo.
I will.
And I said to him, and we said to each other, literally yesterday, we were like, because the kids get getting a bit older now as well. And I said, you know what? We really need to go out for the night. And he was like, yeah, we really do. He was like, can we get your parents to look after, have a sleepover with the kids? I was like, yeah, let's do that. I said, let's just go into town. Let's go and get pissed. Eat really good food. Let's go and get a hotel. Let's go and have some sex. Let's just pretend, not pretend. Let's actually just be adults again. Because I said, we're great when we're together. We love each other. But honestly, my husband and I do have recently, over the last recent years, had these real moments of, it sounds a bit cheesy, but we're really proud that we're still hanging in there, because either of us could have thrown the towel in so many times, because what no one tells you when you get married, and then particularly when you have children as well, is that shit is going to test you every single day, left, right and centre. You throw in, PMT into the mix, a bit of stress over there, a bit of, you've left your shoes over there. We haven't got any childcare on this day. I want to work. No, you're working. No, I want, career, the career juggle, the who's more important, it's just a lot. And then you throw into it, my father-in-law died, grief's absolute bitch to deal with, as well. Life is difficult. And then you do get to a point. And I think because nowadays, which is a good thing, I'm very pro-divorce. If a relationship is terrible and you should never stay in a relationship for the sake of it, that's unsafe, where you're disrespected, feeling respected is a base level, need and requirement in a relationship. So totally, if you're not in that kind of relationship, I was not in that relationship years ago when I was in a controlling one, get the hell out. And that's brilliant now that we can leave relationships so much easier. But equally, I think we need to be careful that we also don't throw the towel in too quickly. Yeah. And I think there is also that tendency, because it is easy to throw the towel in now. One in two, divorce.
A lot of my friends are getting divorced. Right. And they've only been,
and there's a lot that can be done. It's why I created a coaching platform called The Relationship Place, which is really easy, because I can't coach everybody, who slide into my DMs, and I wish I could. So I wanted to just kind of give a blanket sort of stage one, a bit like on Celebs Go Dating, kind of a bit of a stage one, look, try this first, if you're arguing all the time, you don't want to have sex, you're, worried about, are they cheating on you, do you stay, do you go, looking at all the kind of main issues. And I think you asked me a little while ago about kind of what the main issues are with is communication and also arguing. If you try, the first thing I say to people is just stop thinking that one of you needs to win an argument, because it never ever works. And I think that's the biggest thing that my husband and I have learned, is to stop trying to win. Just accept how each other feels, how each other thinks. My husband and I have a terrible argument styles, really. He's a protester and I'm a withdrawer. So protest and withdraw. He's Mediterranean. He's a now this is often the thing as well in relationships that I've learned. Often the thing that you've fallen in love with that person in the first place
you end up falling out with
is what you learned and what you begin to weaponize them for when things start to get tough.
That's so funny that you say that, because I have broken up with exes over what we fell in love because of, which is so interesting.
Right, and this is a big thing. This is what often I say to people in couples therapy, which is why a reason to get them back to doing some positive change work to figure out if this relationship can get back on track is to go back to that key moment when you fell in love, or that first defining moment, your first date, your wedding day, whatever it might be, to get rid of all the noise and the crap and the resentment and the contempt and all of that bullshit that's kicked in, and get back to the nubbins of it. And my husband and I had to go through that journey about 18 months ago, because we were at loggerheads, because 10 years in, 2 kids in, but we're both busy with our careers, we're both very headstrong. Now, what it came down to, I actually fell in love with my husband because he's no pushover. I need someone who challenges me. I cannot go out with a wet fart. I just can't. Now, here I found this very handsome man who is Sicilian, and family values is what we bonded over. He's very romantic when he wants to be. Shade. Very, very compassionate, but he's so loyal. And this is the thing. He is so loyal. He is so trusting. He has never, ever, ever once displayed anything for me to not trust him. You know, so all the key things I was looking for in a guy. And also, you know, boundaried, holds me accountable. You know, everything that I preach to other people they should be looking for. He's
giving it all.
Yeah, I'm giving it. But then when I'm trying to basically get away with everything I want to do because I was trying to live, when I want to live my independent life, not an interdependent life, which is a couple relationship, I then get stroppy because I'm like, oh, well, it's like, well, no, can we think about this? I'm like, and I start getting shitty about it, thinking, well, why is he not just saying yes? Why is he just not a yes man? You know, and it's that, it's like weaponizing then the thing that you actually loved about him was like, no, he's principled and boundary and values being in a couple. And the same thing that he recognized. He loved the fact that I was independent, I was career, I'm family, I'm bright, I'm sunny, I'm loud and gobby, you know, that extrovert that he gets the energy from. And yet behind closed doors, oh, Anna's too much. You know, she's never around. I don't feel like got much time for me, you know. And so suddenly
That's so interesting when you think about it like that.
Yeah, and then suddenly you're weaponizing each other for the things you actually fell in love with them about.